Hello and welcome to this course on USALI. In this module, we are going to discuss the undistributed expenses. So the undistributed expenses in hospitality are coming from say, administrative department, sales and marketing department, information technology, maintenance, and utilities. So first, we are going to discuss the standard P&L for administrative and general in this course. So as not with the other operating departments which has revenue and expenses, the administrative and general P&L does not have any revenue because it's a support department. The department's responsibility is mainly to support the decision making. So it will include the general manager, the finance manager, the HR department, the security department. So those and the procurement, material management team. So those departments will constitute administrative and general department. The IT services will be under IT expenses, and the director of sales and marketing, the sales team, marketing team, revenue management will all go to sales and marketing department. While the director of engineering, project managers, maintenance engineers, duty engineers will all go to maintenance and utilities department. So these are the four main support functions for any hospitality company. Apart from that, the housekeeping department or the public area, they all go to rooms department because that's the main business of the hotel is the rooms, right? Letting of the rooms. So, but those departments are directly responsible for customer service, while the administrative and general maintenance, sales and marketing are not responsible only for rooms, but also for F&B, for spa, for any other operating departments. Hence, their costs are not able to be distributed directly to any operating profit department. You cannot allocate the cost of GM into the rooms and F&B and a spa department by ratio, by any ratio, even though it's supporting all the departments. You can use the time that he is using in each department, or you can use the revenue in each department, but that's not the realistic allocation of cost. Hence in hospitality we don't attempt to allocate the cost of support functions, which is administrative and general, sales and marketing, maintenance, and IT, to operating departments, which we have already seen the rooms division, F&B division, other operating departments in our previous three modules. So instead of allocating them all to in operating department, we consolidate the cost in separate departments and compare with our benchmarks, with our budget, with our forecast, and everything else. So, as you would see on the screen, the administrative and general expenses are divided into two major parts. One is the labor cost and related expenses, and the other is the other expenses. So, we're going to look at the line by line into the definition of what are those expenses. But in an overall structure, labor cost again is divided into divided into salary, wages, and payroll related expenses. Salary wages will include service charge, salaries, contract staff, bonus, and incentives. Now, salary and wages again are divided into management and non management, while non management is further divided into accounting, general support, HR, training, purchasing, receiving, security department. Uh, so why we separate that out? Because the responsibility of managing these departments lies with different individuals. So it's easier to pinpoint the responsibility of higher or lower lower cost of managing the hotels, and also to compare different hotels of different sizes to see whether the accounting is more, whether they are spending more on HR, whether they are spending more on security, because depending on the size of the property, the size, the security will be different. Purchasing and receiving would different based on where they are located, based on locations, how far they are from the market. Accounting would depend on again number of software that you're using. If you're doing manual accounting, you're doing system related accounting, and whether you have shared services with the other companies, or you are a standalone hotel. So it will depend on the different size and structures of the hospitality. So it's easier if you split it out between different departments to compare where the hotel is spending more or where the hotel is spending less. But when we compare, we have to compare only with the similar size hotels and in the similar locations so that we have a better comparison. Now let us look at the definition of the accounting. So accounting will only be your general ledger accounting, your credit AR function, income audit function, cost control function. So those departments which are responsible for creating the financial statements, doing the audits of the transactions, creating the reports will be considered as accounting. So the financial controller or the director of finance would be considered in management position rather than in accounting. So the managerial positions in finance, like the finance manager, chief accountant, assistant financial controller, they all go to the management. But the supervisory levels, the account payable team, the entire credit team, entire general accounting team, cost control team would go into the accounting department. Then you have general support. General support is usually the GM office expense, GM office. You have drivers, you have the secretaries in the GM office or any other general support, which is supporting all the functions and but not related directly with any of the departments, accounting, HR, purchasing, and security. They will go as a general support. Then you have human resource expense. So human resources department is responsible for recruiting the people, training the people, and managing the calculating the payroll. So that is human resource. After that, you have the purchasing and receiving, which is usually for material management. It includes receiving staff, store staff, purchasing, whether sitting in the office or going out and purchasing from the market. And you have security staff. Securities in many hotels is not permanent, is sometimes the contracted staff, contracted security, which means that it will go into the contracted lease and outsourced labor. But if the security is hired directly by the hotel and the payment is done through the payroll of the property, and you are paying the social security benefits or the provident fund or any other government related dues directly on behalf of the employees, then the cost of those staff will go into the salary and wages. But if you have engaged a third party company where third party is responsible for all those responsibilities, their social security, their benefits, the provision of the leaves and anything else, and also the replacement, and the hotel does not have a direct control over the number of people that you hire and the how to direct those people into work, then the cost will go into the contracted, leased, and outsourced labor. But sometimes the contract is a combination of labor plus the material. So it's always wise to split the cost between the material part and the labor part. So labor will go here and the material will go into the other expenses. So we have security expenses in the other expenses line. So the cost will go into that. Or otherwise, it will go to miscellaneous if you don't have any specific equipment there. Then you have bonus and incentive, which will be going into the bonus. And annually, you will give the bonus to the staff or incentive based on any specific achievement. The cost of that will go into the but only the and related with the admin, HR, and security department, purchasing department, not the other one. The service charge distribution, as we said, through the payroll processing, which we are paying through the payroll, and it has to be the compulsory payment, compulsory charge by the government. If it's a compulsory charge by the hotel to the guest, if the guest has a willingness to pay the service charge, then service charge distribution is not part of the expenses, but will be rather be a part of your liabilities. So that we have discussed in the previous modules in great length. You may want to refer that back. Then we have the payroll related expenses where we are where we are considering about the payroll tax, employee share of contribution to the state insurance, and the social security team. Supplementary pay will include your vacation, personal days, holidays, relocation pay, part time or overtime, and severance pays. So that will be going into the supplementary pay. Employee benefits will be the meal, the health insurance, the accommodations, the transportation, or any other dues that are paid as a benefit to the staff. Now we have discussed these lines in more details in our previous modules. So to save your time, we will not be repeating them all again. If you have, you can refer back to the other videos where we have already shared the much more details. The only thing that you might have to remember here in this case is that in as in the other cost centers, in the other profit center, like in front of F&B, you have the different outlets. So we are creating separate cost center for each and every outlet. In the same case, here in A&G, there are multiple departments. Like there is a accounting department, there is a HR department, there is a security department, there is a purchasing department. So hotels sometimes create separate cost centers for different departments so that we can monitor the cost of individual departments as well, rather than just the administrative and general in total. So you have to be careful in if you really want to get into details, because certain the more detailed transactions you want to carry out, like by cost center, by accounting team, the payroll taxes, the supplementary pay, all you have to you have to calculate individually for each department separately. Means the type of calculations and the extent of calculations will increase substantially. So you need to evaluate whether you want to monitor that separately or you don't want to monitor that separately. So the decision lies on how much detailed expenses we want to control in the administrative and general. So that was the labor cost. Now let's look at the key lines of the other expenses. So you will be able to get this book so you can read the details. But let me explain you some of the expenses in more details. So audit charges, first is audit charge. So audit charge is the cost of external audit or internal audit related with the accounting. So if there is an audit related with the any specific department, for example, a hygiene audit or engineering audit or F&B audit or a housekeeping audit, which is usually done by the by the companies. So the cost of those other department audit will go to those other departments. But since they don't have audit charges line, they will be recorded under miscellaneous cost. But for administrative and general, accounting audits and internal audit, external audit, the certifications will all be going into the audit charges. So we have a line called audit charges. So the cost will be going into this. But sometimes the auditors are asking their own auditors, or they hire external auditors to check on the operator, uh, whether the operator is doing a good job or not doing a good job. So the cost of that audit, if paid by hotel, because it's owner related expenses, it will go into the non-operating income and expense, not into the audit charges. So it's a difference who is directing and who is requesting the audit. If it's a part of the hotel operations, it's an annual exercise coming from the corporate audit, and the focus more is on the operations of the hotel from the operating point of view, then the cost will be going into audit charges. But if the audit is requested by owners or the detailed investigation is requested by owners, then the audit charges will go into the non-operating income and expenses. So that's the difference. Then you have bank charges, which is usually the cost of bank for transfer, for issuing the checkbook, for maintaining the bank account, stock payment charges, monthly transfer charges, salary transfer, all these charges will be going into the bank charges, but not the interest. The interest will go into the interest lines in separate below the line, below the not in the non-operating income and expenses, not into this line. Then you have cash overage shortage, which is normally when you are doing the cash operation, there's always a shortage and a cash on an excess due to the sometimes the small change you don't have. Sometimes you are not you are giving up you by mistake you give extra notes or the guest pay you extra. So sometimes you have cash overage and shortage. So in this department, all the cashiers, wherever they are located in front office, F&B, other operating departments. All the cashier overage and shortage will be included into this particular department because there is no line code for cashiers over average and shortage in other departments. So, and it's easy and it's important to monitor the expenses here. If it's major, then it means the cashiers need to be trained. If it's a spike, like in one month is a lot of expense, another month is a credit, means one month is overage, another month is shortage. Then again, it's happening on a constant basis. That represents the cash is being misutilized for the company. So you may want to make the strict controls over that. Then you have centralized accounting charges and cluster services, which are expenses share of expenses for accounting process, HR process, income audit process, or payroll processing, which are controlled by centralized offices or by the clusters. So maybe a cluster of 4 or 5 hotels, the accounting is done at a central level, and then is charged back to the individual hotel. So the cost of that will be into this department. The cluster centralized accounting will be where all the you are just putting up everything else. Um, like all the accounts payable are paid through the accounting of through the centralized office, means that you may need to pay a transaction charge for every process. But the cluster services is a limited geographical, not as a centralized accounting only, but it's a cluster of services. So it can be the HR director, which is clusterized, which is a security manager, which is clusterized, taking care of 3 or 4 properties. Then the cost of that will go into here, but you have to remember that it's not the labor cost which will go here unless it cannot be identified. If it can be identified, the labor cost will go to the labor expenses, and the other expenses will go to the other line of codes. But if we cannot identify those expenses separately, then it will go into the cluster services. But you have to maintain the consistency. So if is in one month you are charging to cluster, then every month you have to charge into cluster services, even though you may get the details. Otherwise, the comparison over the previous month and this month will not be good. Then you have complementary services and gifts, which includes the cost of providing gift items and gratis presentations to the guest of administrative in general. So whether the financial controller is inviting any guest, whether we are giving the gifts to the ministers, to the bankers, to the our key vendors, um, or the GM is giving that, or the purchasing is giving that, or supplier, or the security department is giving to the police officers. Those are all cost of those gifts, item, and gratis presentations will be going into this line code. This does not include the consumption of in-house F&B department. So if you are treating somebody in the F&B, then it will be the entertainment in-house rather than the complimentary gifts and services. Then you have the contract services, which means that sometimes you hire the contractors rather than the hotel employees to do certain things, right? For example, you do the cleaning services, document storage services. You may want to hire somebody from outside to do accounting sometimes. So these are contract services. You don't have a control over the quality of service. You just have to give the task, and the contracted company will do all the job. So that is the contract services. It will go here, but here the majority of the contract services is usually is not the labor intensive industry. It's more on professional service providers rather than the under the direct contract direct line or control of the hotel. Then you have corporate office reimbursable, especially from the management companies. They have corporate offices. If there is any traveling expense or any audit expense or visitation expense is coming, then the cost of that, for particularly for finance, HR, and security, then the cost will be allocated to this department, this line of code. Then you have credit and collection department, which is the cost of collecting the guest account. Sometimes you hire the third party collectors, lawyers for sending the notices, and the hire collection agencies to go and collect on your behalf, and you have to pay a certain percentage points. So that cost will go into the credit and collection. So it's important to understand how, if the company is really spending a bit on the collection of the expenses, so that you can build into the prices later on. Then you have credit card commissions. So credit card commission is normally for every merchant you have to pay to the credit card company, which is Amex, Visa, Master, or JCB, or Diners Card. There is a specific percentage that you have to pay to these companies for enabling the process of the transaction. The important thing here is two. One is the reconciliation with the revenue. So you have a revenue which is being collected in this month, so you have to make sure the collection credit card commission of that revenue is recognized in this month itself, because sometimes the payment is done after 1 week or after 1 month. If you're not making the accrual of the commission expenses in the right month, then the expenses will be charged in the another month when you actually get the money. So you have to make sure that you are following the accrual basis of accounting for credit card commissions, which does not happen in many hotels. Many hotels are following the basis of the payment, but payment terms of all the credit card companies are different because they offer different merchant commissions. So if you want payment in 1 day, there will be a higher commission. If you want payment in 7 days or in 1 month, the commission percentage is different. But in that case, your money is also stuck for a long time. And if you don't know the if you have does not have a reconciliation of the revenue to the credit card commission, then you may not be able to recognize the expense in the right month. So that is very important. All the statistics, the percentage of the expenses to the revenue are sometimes disturbed because of non-accrual of credit card commissions. Then you have decoration expenses, which is in the administrative and general areas, so into the offices of the general areas. So you may want to record the decoration, general decoration of the expenses on very special holidays or events. So you can record those expenses. Then you have donations which we are making to the political parties, to social parties, or community donations by the admin and HR department, or the finance department, or the general manager. So you have to record the expenses in donations. Here, important thing you have to remember is, because the account name is donation, the tax officials will be having a very scrutiny of this account expenses, and will see what is not allowed. If you are putting something which is not allowed as a tax deduction, then they will be added back to the income of the hotel. So here you have to be very careful to put only the expenses which are allowed by the tax office as a deduction. The expenses which are not allowed as a tax deduction, on account of donation, you should not be putting into this account. Then you have dues and subscription, which is the general, which is very pretty clear. Is the magazine subscription, the professional organization subscription, the chamber of commerce subscriptions by the GM or the director of finance or the HR or the security to get the insights into the market. So security sometime is subscribing to the security news. So daily security flash from professional companies who are analyzing the news and giving the security alerts to the hotel to be on high alert on any specific incident in the city or in the country, or on the weathers, or on the social unrest, or any other specific guests who are maybe a skipper in one another hotel. So you can normally get a report from the security alerts. So that are very critical subscriptions. So you may want to separate the by department to see what kind of subscriptions you are subscribing, and it will help you to make an accrual in the future. Then you have entertainment in-house, which means the cost of the in-house entertainment by the director of finance, HR, or general manager for to the outside vendors, right? So it's not to inside vendors, but not to the entertainment of the guests. Sometime by GM for not for promotional purposes, for general purposes. Then you have equipment rental, which is you may be hiring a fax machine or a copier machine, or sometime a car for any specific purpose by these departments. So cost will go here. However, if the rental is for a long term and supposed to be a part of property, then the cost will go to non-operating. How long is there is no clarification, but you may have a policy on that. Then you have the human resource expenses, which includes the cost of hiring, such as recruitment, relocation, background check, non-legal cost of the visa, means the transportation or the under-table payments or the gifts and gratis, employees, temporary housing, physician fees, medical checkup, those costs which are related with the employ with the human resource function means hiring, not the training. Training is a separate expense. Then the hiring, recruitment, selection, and also the termination and the management of the people. So those costs will be into this line. So it's important to have a sub schedule for because this they're going to be a hodgepodge account all into one. So you may have a separate sub accounts into this so that into the general ledger so that you can actually track the what is the recruitment cost, what are the background check costs, what are the medical checkup costs, and any other employee awards or the employee benefits or the recognition. So whatever those expenses are, you may want to have a separate detail so that you can prepare future budgets because certain expenses are repeatable, certain expenses are not repeatable. Then you have legal services, which means the cost of attorney or the government fees for expatriate visa or any other expenses which is paid to government. So that's the important. License and permits, which is related with the general activities of the hotel and specific to the administrative in general, but not the license and permit specific to the department. Will go to the department cost, but these are more on general, like hotel license or national jurisdiction, local jurisdiction licenses, or the license which are required in general, not for specific department, or required for specific department of security or HR only. Then you have loss and damage, which is another important line for hotels, where we are putting because there are where we are putting the losses and damages to the guest property, and also the damage in excess of the insurance amount recovered from the insurance company. So it does not include the loss and damage to the hotel property. It's include the loss and damage to the guest property, which is lost and damaged in excess of the amount receivable from the insurance company. So normally the hotels have a public liability insurance, a third party liability insurance, where they are where they are this is to cover the hotel's legal liability for loss of guest property. Then the cost of that will go the cost, but there is always a deductible and the insurance companies are not paying the 100% of the damage. So if you are paying x amount to the guest and you are able to recover only another amount from the insurance company, the difference will go into this line of code. But if there is a loss and damage to the hotel property, then it will be a non-operating expense, not a loss and damage into the hotel expense. Then you have miscellaneous, which is the other lines, everything else which is not going into this. Then you have non-gas related foreign currency exchange, means if this foreign exchange gain and loss is not coming out of the conversions done by the guest at the front office, but is from account receivable, account payable, and also the general expenses, not from the guest. Then you have operating supplies, cost of items needed to operate the administrative and general department. That is the supply contracts, the notepads, the fax machines, calculators. If you are buying them and they are not very expensive and are not able to capitalize, then the cost will go into the operating supply expenses. Then you have payroll processing, which is the sometimes you hire third party companies to process the payroll, then cost of will go here. Post and overnight expenses is simple. Professional fees is you are if you are hiring the professional companies to do a consulting, then the cost will go here. सब चुप नहीं हो गए है ना? नहीं चुप हो गए तुम लोग? फिल्म चिल्ली होती रहेगी है ना? समझ नहीं बात इससे? Professional fees will be the cost of public accountants, not the audit, but the general consultancy or the lawyer, not the lawyers. Lawyers will go to the legal fees, but other consultants like the HR consultant or the security consultant to give you the professional fees. So it will include their traveling and other reimbursable expenses as well, or the commissions to the rental agents who have assisted in securing their tenants or a space in the property, charged to this account. Department specific consulting, they will be charged to this account. HR consultants, security consultants will be charged to this account. If you are paying any expert, any agent for securing rental for, let's say, your GM house, then the cost will go into this expense as well. Then you have the provision for but doubtful debts, which is usually the provision for based on a percentage to the total accounts receivable. This depends on the account hotel policy, how much that you have to charge. So it's a specific percentage which is derived by looking at the average of actual loss over a period of maybe last 3 years. So you have to determine how much was the actual bad debt in the last 3 years, how much was the average account receivable on a monthly basis, and then you will derive at a percentage. It usually comes about 1 to 3 percentage points, and then you have to use that number for making a provision every month. So the accounts receivable will continue to change over a period of every month. So you have to adjust the provision every month, right? It has to be in relation with the level of accounts receivable, and it will be a fixed percentage. So some month you may have a positive amount, means charge, and some month you may have a recovery, means a credit. So it's usual, but over a period of time, it will be in a year, it's either a charge or it can be a recovery depending on the level of accounts receivable. So it can be minus as well. Then you have security expenses, which is the contract security or for one-time events or hiring of any specific events to for the functions. So if it's a long-term security, then the cost will be going into the contract services or to the labor cost. But the any equipment rental you are hiring on a short-term basis will be going into the security expense and a one-time expenses. Then you have settlement expenses, which is settlement coming from the uninsurable claims. Means we looked at the loss and damages which were under insurance. So if you are paying any guest settlements because but they are not insured for any reason, then the cost will be going into the settlement cost. It can be the employees as well or the guest. Then you have the staff transportation services, which means the transporting them from the place of work to the place of house or going around in the city for office purposes. You have training expense, which is the training cost, cost of trainer, cost of meal, cost of equipment that are used in the training. So flip chart, certification, any fees that you have to pay to the instructor outside. So all the costs, all the materials, books will be charged into the training cost. Then you have the traveling, meals, and entertainment, and travel others, which is for official purposes you are traveling. So the meals and entertainment means the gratis and the meal will be going to one account. The cost of hotel ticket and the booth fees or the guest room internet will be going into the travel others. Then you have uniform gas and uniform laundry, which is for the uniform of the A&G department and also the cleaning cost of the A&G department. So that's the overall expenses for administrative and general department. In the next video, we're going to be looking at the IT expenses.